Hello, all you rotten people out there on YouTube. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. This is an exciting time. We've got some great guests who are going to be on in just a second. I know you came for them. You didn't come for my ugly ass. I get it. But I'm going to introduce them in one moment. I promise. Let's see who all is in the chat real quick before we get started. Cheech, wrenching it up for us. Love you, dude. Beth Higgins was the first one to comment on this stream. As soon as I posted the stream, she said, no, it isn't. So I guess that's it. We're done. She figured it out. Well, we can all go home now. Bourbon Bites, who I was hoping was going to be on stream, but he is a little busy tonight with his own stuff. Make sure to go watch his stream after ours because that's going to be awesome. He's got a guest in from a bourbon-centric charity, so that's really cool. Scott Moody, Roop, Gary White, Mood to Move, Eli Cooks on time. Hey, Eli, I owe you a sample. That should be forthcoming very shortly. We got the sample bottles today. I ran out. Andrew Sparrell, I see. Who else? Icehouse, another Wisconsinite. Good to see ya. And Eric Wade says it's Mash and Drum Tube now. They've changed the name. He's just too big. He's gotten just so big. Whiskey Weddle, second stream of the week. Thank you, my dude. Floydian. Oh, he's already got his opinion. The law is pedantic and stupid. Thank you, Floydian. Puffs and Drams. That's awesome. What is everyone drinking tonight is the important question. You got to let me know that. And Jen Ardolino, wonderful. I'm glad to see you, Ardolinos, in here. And Wheels rolled in. Yes, you did, Wheels. All right. So you probably saw the thumbnail. What are we talking about tonight? We are talking about finished bourbon. All right. So we should establish first, according to the U.S. government, according to the TTB, what is bourbon? Bourbon, whiskey produced not exceeding 80% alcohol, fermented mash of 51% corn, stored at not more than 62.5% charred new oak. And that's what we're coming together to decide today. We're going to have a definitive answer by the end of the stream. Is finishing a bourbon in something other than new charred oak, changing it beyond what bourbon really is? This may seem like a somewhat pedantic and silly question, but this channel is silly and pedantic, and I love this nerdy crap. So I have got some wonderful guests here today to talk about this topic. You probably know some of them, and if you don't, you're going to meet them now. So here we go. Starting on my right, or no, wait, let's go counterclockwise. Who is this gentleman? Introduce yourself.
Oh, me down here?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So my name is Neil, and I do a lot of kneeling, but not in that way. And then also I'm on the Bourbon Buddies, which is the little thing here, the channel that my buddy Jeff and I have. So that's me. Yeah.
Yeah, go make sure to go subscribe. Hey, Cheech, would you mind throwing that link? I should have thrown these links in the description, but I'm a bad person. So, Cheech, would you help me out?
Thank you, Cheech.
And then, who's next? Who's down there? Who's over in the corner?
Hello, my name's Jay. I'm from Bourbon and a Baby. I just noticed my camera is looking like crap right now, so I apologize for the quality on that. But, yeah, I have a channel, Bourbon and a Baby, where I do bourbon reviews and stuff, and also talk about kids and stuff. So if you're a dad and like bourbon, check me out.
Yeah, his wee one is adorable, by the way. He's very cute.
Thank you.
All right, and then there's some other guy here. We don't got to worry about him. I don't even know who he is. I don't know how he got on here.
What's up? Jason from the Mash and Drum. Yeah, you guys are probably sick of me this week. This is my third live stream in a row each night, but I love the topic, and you know, I couldn't resist hanging out with my man Ed, and of course Neil and Jay.
Yeah, and of course Erica is not here. She said this sounds like nerd shit, and that's generally what she says when we're talking about something very academic and heavily esoteric. So she only shows up when she wants to just drink. She doesn't like to have to talk about nerd shit.
Getting nerdy.
Get nerdy.
Luke says I need to ask you about your train. I believe that's the model train.
Oh, come on, dude. Enough with
Could be
this
the
train here. Yeah, I mean, short story is I showed Fred Minnick my Jim Beam collector decanter train set that I got. And he basically, while I was showing it to him, he had this look of like disgust on his face. And just basically looked at he's like, are you gonna be mad at me if I tell you that the juice in there is gonna suck? I'm like, well, I wasn't planning on drinking it. And then ADHD Whiskey, of course, the king of the chat, he writes in the chat, he goes, "Hey Fred, look at my train." And then Fred goes, "Fuck your train."
That conductor's hat is priceless. Too.
Yeah, so it's become a meme. It's become a little bit of everything. It's been pretty great though, I gotta say.
That is amazing, though.
Yeah.
ADH Whiskey is actually here tonight.
Yes, I see him.
Hello, how you doing, Matt? Good to see you. Eric Waite's here too. Everybody, wow! Thank you all for coming in. If you haven't subscribed yet, we're getting close to 2,000. Who cares if we make it or not? But I care. Get us to 2,000, please.
Yeah, get this man to 2K.
Yes,
you got to. You're almost there. We got to get it there, baby.
I know. We're very close. I was surprised. Erica told me earlier, and I was like, really? Are we? That doesn't make sense. We're terrible. So we're talking about finished bourbons, which I got to say seems to the number of finished bourbons finished in something other than New Charred Oak, seems to have exploded in the last couple years. I would say 2018 to coming into this couple years, or this year, seems to have just massively gotten huge. I mean, they existed previously, but I kept thinking, 2019, that's going to be like the year of the finished bourbon. And then 2020 was like, nope, we're going to just keep this train a-rolling. And it seems like it's not going anywhere anytime soon.
Mm-hmm.
No. And I will say, I don't want, this discussion isn't necessarily about are these things bad or good taste-wise or smell-wise. We can judge those on their own merits. This is more about what bourbon is, the definition of bourbon, and is this just a natural evolution of the category, or are we moving in a strange direction that is taking us away from the essence of what bourbon is? So I wanted to have you guys on because bourbon is not my first love. I definitely got into bourbon because of Erica. You guys have a lot more experience and skin in the game with bourbon. So I wanted to see what you guys thought. So I will open it up to the floor. We'll just see what we come up with. So,
what can I start?
Yeah, of course, please.
Okay. Go for it, Neil. Kick it off, buddy.
No one wants to hear me talk.
Okay, so it's funny enough because on Instagram, Breaking Bourbon, there was a post that popped up. Literally, I would say I saw it like an hour before the stream, and they had a survey that they sent out on their website to say, do you feel comfortable calling bourbon still if it's finished in anything? And they went through like different tiers of questions. And it was kind of interesting because when I took the quiz and the survey, what I originally thought I was going to answer in certain ones, I didn't. Because this is like a topic for me that I'm kind of a very much originalist. So I really like bourbon to be bourbon. But like right off the bat for me, if I were just to say how I stand on this, I'm kind of more about information on the label. So if it's a straight bourbon finished in, any kind of barrel, let's say it's even just like with Maker's Mark 46 cask strength, something like that, right? If that's just even oak staves that they're changing out. I think like the more information that you have on the label, the better. And I would rather not have if it started truly out as a bourbon, I would not want that to be hidden from the label. I would rather have that on the label, tell you straight out that this was a bourbon. It started out as a bourbon, but it was finished in this. That's kind of where I stand just off the bat, off the top of my head,
Sure.
But then when I start thinking about it more, I start to get like messed up. I'm starting to go, wait, I'm kind of like contradicting myself, and I don't know where the hell it's going anymore. You know what I mean? Like the more you think about it, the more problems come up with certain things with finished bourbon. But I don't have a problem with finished bourbon. I really don't. There's so many great expressions out there. So I don't know. That's how I feel off the bat.
Sure. I think that's what it's going to come down to is there's going to be intricacies about what you're finishing and what you're doing it with.
Yeah.
People are going to feel differently depending on what was done to it. I do think Top Shelf Dustin and Mood to Move are both agreeing with you, though. Info on the label is paramount. That's like one of the most important things about what you're doing with your whiskey. And I think that's true of any whiskey, really. Whether when you're talking about mash bill, distillation, whatever.
Yeah, I think transparency is the biggest thing that you want, especially on a finished bourbon. Just overall, we all love transparency, even when we're talking about whiskeys that are sourced. But I think the reason why we're seeing so much finished whiskeys is because the category of whiskey drinkers has grown so much the last several years. You have more people getting into whiskey, more people getting in the game, and this is just opening up more people that want something a little bit sweeter to whiskey. So you're seeing rum, you're seeing sherry, you're seeing cognac finishes, all these different types of flavor profiles that people are using to open up more people to whiskey. But also for that bottom line, they just want to get some more products on the shelf that offer up something different across the line. Now, for me, when you look at the rules, okay, bourbon can be has to be 51% corn, American made, new charred oak, distilled no past 160, in the barrel 125, has to be bottled 80 proof or higher. Once you go through all that, no coloring or no flavor can be added.
Right.
For me, a finished bourbon, I think, ceases to become a regular bourbon. Agreed. But that's me just personally. But I also don't take it that seriously. If it still wants to be called bourbon, and as long as you are open about it on the label of exactly what it is, what it was finished in, for how long, I'm cool with it, because just to me, I'm not taking it too seriously. Good whiskey is just good whiskey. Good bourbon's good bourbon. But in my personal opinion, because you're pouring some bourbon into a barrel, you don't know how wet it is. You don't know how much juice is still left in those staves. If it's a fresher barrel, that's going to impart coloring and flavor to the bourbon. And under the rule of law, if you see no color or flavoring added, it ceases to become a bourbon. So purist-wise, for me, I don't really think it's a bourbon, but I don't really take it that seriously as long as you're open on the label of what's happening in the bottle.
Sure. Jay, what are you thinking? Any thoughts from you?
I I'm right there with all you guys so far. Transparency is the biggest key. It's not technically, if you finish it, a bourbon, but if you say it's a bourbon finished in whatever, I'm totally cool with it. I don't know that anybody would do this, but if somebody were to try to finish a bourbon and then just not even say it was a finished bourbon and only on the label call it a bourbon, then that's not a bourbon. But I'm not a purist per se. As long as we don't start seeing like flavored whiskeys trying to call themselves bourbon, which some do, like brown sugar bourbon and such, that's where I kind of draw a line. Scotch whiskey has been finishing forever, so it's just an evolution, I think, of the subset of bourbon. And places are killing it right now with finished bourbons.
Yeah, I think the prevailing theory is people want to just protect the integrity of bourbon and don't want to get the labeling and everything a little bit too loose. It is America's native spirit, so I could see why the purists would go a little bit crazy and wanting to protect that. So I get that part of it. But, like I said, the demand for the whiskey drinker these days is begging for new flavors, new finishes, interesting combinations of flavors. I mean, I have one right here. It's Foregate, which is a $200 bottle of bourbon, but it's finished in cognac and rum casks. So we have a double, double finish here. And they say it right out on the label, which is fine. But when you're putting so much flavor and imparting it into the bourbon, for me, I'm not really sure if it's still per se a bourbon.
Sure. And I think Eric Waite brings up an excellent point.
Yep.
One that I think there are interesting questions here regarding what traditionally comes to mind. And tradition can be an iffy thing. What is traditional Scotch whiskey? What is traditional Irish whiskey? Irish whiskey was very different in the late 1800s than it is today. Same with Scotch. And of course, bourbon originally was unaged, all that. But I guess what cuts to the point more is for the average consumer and under the rule of law. And first of all, we shouldn't necessarily say the rule of law is be all end all, to be fair. But what is the consumer, the average consumer, expecting if they buy something that has bourbon on the label?
Correct. Yeah. I'm with that. I mean, and that's like, for me, that's what I think. When I think bourbon, I'm thinking those, traditional caramel, vanilla flavors, and a little bit of spice, and you get some apple, some cherry, and and as you get older, a little more leather, tobacco, all those flavors kind of come into play. But you don't necessarily think like, oh, my bourbon tastes like maple syrup because then it was finished in a rum cask.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where. But still, you have to look at today's market and what people are wanting. It's just opening up more people to the category, whether you like it or not.
Sure.
Yeah. I think it comes down to if you're coming from, like you were saying, Ed, with the typical everyday consumer, let's say they're not, really into bourbon. They know of bourbon. And when they look at a label, I think that word bourbon it's hot right now, and when you see it on the label, I think some of these labels get tricky. And if you don't know your labels, you take a look at it, you're like, oh, it's bourbon. And they hide certain things in a sense of making certain words smaller. Like even I was kind of looking at this bottle with the Davis County. So,
Davis County.
When you look, it's just like this little thing. There's like dots right on bourbon whiskey. I can't really, it's hard to see, but there's like 2 dots on the other side of bourbon whiskey. So it's like saying that it's bourbon whiskey, and then like the other stuff's kind of like in the background, even though I know they're not trying to hide the fact that it's finished in French oak, but it's kind of those little things that you start seeing on a label that I know that some people are scared, like you were saying, Jason, of it's like, this could kind of go a little far, right? They want to protect bourbon for what bourbon is. And, it's super strict with its regulations, compared to other spirits in the world. So I could totally see both parts with that.
I think it really got crazy when Jim Beam's Legion was released.
Yeah.
So, for those that don't remember, Legion was a collaboration between Jim Beam and Japanese whiskey, maker that's under the the Beam Suntory flavor profile. And they did this whole blending with sherry and all this other stuff. What's up, Eric? And they really, it just said, if you remember the bottle, it just said Legion on the front. It didn't really say much else. It did say it was finished and then blended on the sides in very, very small print. But a lot of bourbon purists lost their mind.
I remember that.
Bottle because they thought like that bottle was now taking it to another level where they're actually hiding what's happening in that bottle, and then it ceased to become bourbon. Once you put that, once you blended it and you finished it and you put that in the bottle, and you should call out on the front, big and bold, exactly what you're getting. So that kind of started a lot of people down the path of like losing their mind over it.
Yeah, and Beam did, it's not bourbon, but they did that. A couple of people pointed out already in the chat with the the Basil Hayden dark rye and the Caribbean rye.
Yeah, which are blends. They're blends. They're I mean, they didn't finish anything. They literally took port wine and rum and poured it in to blend it.
Yeah. And then I think, well, and there's one thing, I have so many things you guys are popping into my head, but we'll try to take them one at a time. Whiskey Weddle makes a good point that New Oak is really because of the power, like a Cooper's Union leaning on government to make it New Oak. So like the rule of law has a big influence on what bourbon is. Like previous to that, it was Wild West, do whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So really, I mean, part of our expectation for bourbon is enshrined because the U.S. government said, this is what is best for bourbon, not necessarily what people were actually doing, which I think kind of mirrors the issues that Irish whiskey has had with pot still whiskey, in that Middleton has really leaned on the Irish government to define pot still whiskey as exactly what Middleton makes, in terms of a mash bill. So that way people can't use more oats or rye in their pot still whiskey, which, again, that becomes an issue of just because it was not the best reasoning for why something was created to be the way it's created doesn't mean that isn't what people expect today. Also, we got a super chat. Look at that. Oh, John Gunso, thank you. Yes. And actually, I owe one to James Britcher, I believe, too. He was on the Aquavite stream and asked me if his comment there could count for Malort pull here. So, yes, this one's for you if you're watching the replay, buddy.
Yeah.
Take nice. A nice extra long.
Oh my God. God.
I actually haven't had to drink much Malort recently. I don't think people haven't been putting in Malort requests that much as of late. So, kind of lucky that way.
I've never had the opportunity to try Malort. So,
would you like some? I'll send you some from a fresh bottle, not this one I've drank out of.
Hey, Jay, you're in Ohio. Whenever you want to come over, I'll gladly give you a bottle.
Malort party over there.
I will say, I think one thing is like, so I'll bring this up as an example. Breckenridge has two products here. One was bourbon that was aged in new charred oak, taken out, and then put back into the exact same casks, essentially. They literally, this is Powder Hound, they literally just took it out, blended it, put it back into the same casks.
Mm-hmm.
Now, should this be considered bourbon? It's not labeled as such. It's labeled as just whiskey.
Okay. So wait, so what did they do with it? They
aged it in new charred oak.
Okay.
They took it out, blended it, put it back into the exact same barrels. However,
blended it with what?
Just amongst the barrels. They just blended their barrels together.
Oh, okay, got it.
Okay. And then put it back into the barrels.
Put it back into the exact same barrels.
Okay.
However, those barrels could not be now considered new. It had already had whiskey in it.
True.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yep.
And a lot of that whiskey that came from certain barrels is now going into another barrel that wasn't before.
Yeah. It's not the exact same whiskey. It's all from the same batch. However, it's not all going into the exact same barrel.
Now that's interesting because you see guys do this all the time where you dump a barrel, you put it into totes, and then you do your blending from there. 80% there, 30% there. But as long as you keep it in that tote before it goes into a bottle, you could still call it bourbon. So these guys blended it, put it back in a barrel. That's interesting.
That is.
Yeah. So I mean, but then on the other hand, so this does not have the word bourbon anywhere on it.
Okay.
However, this does. This is Breckenridge. This is a rum cask finish with natural flavors added.
Ooh.
This has the words blended bourbon whiskey finished in rum barrels with natural flavors added. This has bourbon on it. This does not.
Yeah, based. So actually Breckenridge is actually a really good one to bring up because I think people lost their mind about that one too. Somebody brought it up on one of my live streams how Breckenridge did that, and a lot of people were going crazy because it literally says natural flavors added, and it's still bourbon on the label. Which I mean, if there's like a clear cut breakage of the law of making bourbon, then that's it.
Yeah.
So how they got away with that from the TTB, that's the part that people are scared of. As the rules get looser and the transparency gets murky, that's where we're going to run into a problem, I think. And I think until I don't know. I mean, if we see a couple more distilleries do that, is that when the TTB steps in, or rules get a little bit more strict? I'm not sure.
I feel like the TTB has been super lax the last couple of years on stuff like this. And like you said, that's a definite slippery slope, because that, to me, should not have bourbon on the label.
Yeah, I agree with Steve A in the chat. Like that second one has less cause to be called a bourbon than the first one. I agree.
Right.
Yeah. Because I think Rebel Yell did that root beer flavored bourbon, and they said right on there, forget what. Let me look. It says root beer whiskey, straight bourbon whiskey with natural flavor and a caramel color.
Mm-hmm.
And so
it's Not Your Dad's got away with that too. Not Your Dad's did a flavored bourbon. I don't remember what it was flavored with, but
so what's interesting is like they're being transparent as far as what's in the bottle. They're telling you this is a bourbon. This is a bourbon. At least it started out that way, and then we added some shit to it, and we're telling you on the label exactly what it is. They're not lying about it.
Right.
They're saying this was a bourbon. We added some. We finished it in rum. And then, we figured we'd add some sugar cubes and maple syrup in there just to make it a little better.
make it a party.
I put a couple meatballs in my bourbon every now and then. It's fine.
yeah.
And then
I think here's something Whiskey Crusader Will was bringing up. They should eliminate the blended category, call them distilled spirit specials until it gets sorted out. I think the issue we're seeing right now with the labeling is that, yes, they're being transparent, but I feel like they're gaming the system to an extent to take advantage of bourbon's popularity.
Okay,
correct.
Right? Correct.
So because we have, I mean, what is it? We have whiskey distilled from bourbon mash, which you could easily call this blended whatever thing. This could be a whiskey distilled from bourbon mash. You don't have to call it bourbon. Mm-hmm. Or you could call it a spirit specialty, but the TTB has allowed people to basically create their own categories in terms of labeling. Like, whatever you want to put on the bottle as a label, you can do that as long as it accurately reflects what's in it. However, that does allow people to take advantage of current trends.
Yeah.
Bourbon is hot right now. Bourbon's big. So we're going to put bourbon on the label.
And that's the thing. They're telling you exactly what they did, what's in it, but they're also allowing, what's weird is, okay, they're telling us exactly what they did. They took some bourbon, added some rum, put some other flavors in there. So we're going to leave that. We'll leave that on the label. But even though technically that can't be called a bourbon, and the TTB is letting that slide. And I think that all comes down to, I think that comes out. I think it's a money grab. I think it's all, that's a government agency. Bourbon is hot right now. Whiskey's hot, American whiskey. And they're just going to kind of slip that shit under the rug, let it go by, and we'll see what happens. But I think until more people lose their mind into a specialty category, which I think it should be, I think we'll still continue to see this trend.
Sure.
Good point. Very good point. Yeah, it all comes down to the money. It really does. I mean,
it's always about the money.
Yeah, bourbon mashed potatoes, bourbon pizza. God knows what else you're going to put bourbon on, right? It's everywhere. You see it.
Yeah.
You see it in just everywhere. It's hot.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And I think my favorite one was we did a review of this. It's the Pappy Finish cocktail mix. It's the Pappy Finish fashion mix. Oh my God. Like, it's not bad. It's a good old fashioned mix, but that is the most exploitative tater baity thing I have ever seen. And we sold so much of it.
They have a whole line of different products that's aged in Pappy and all this stuff. They're definitely cashing in.
Oh yeah, Pappy cigars. You can never find those. People buy those up like crazy.
Oh yeah, I know they did a wine that was like a wine that was aged in Pappy barrels. That was a couple years back.
Mm-hmm.
Patrick Fulmer, go to Malaga. Thank you so much, my dude. Thank you for not making me drink Malort. I appreciate it.
Patrick, that is true.
Eric Wade is pointing out machine processed wine material other than grapes. That is an interesting point because there is an analogy to that in American whiskey. Like with blended whiskey, you can do for example, a blended bourbon can technically be 49% grain neutral spirits.
Mm-hmm.
So there is and that's an older one, but not so much. That's not so much popular anymore. But you could technically use other stuff in your bourbon. You can use 95% rye grain neutral spirits and put it in your bourbon.
Yep. I mean, what necessarily makes some neutral grain spirits these days, you think?
Probably corn, one would imagine.
I would think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Cheech. Yes, I am on Twitch. I stream on Twitch sometimes if you want to come hang out. I play a lot of fighting games. Robotic Goramaga. Yes, that is an Edward James Olmos reference. So say we all. Oh, you're talking about, I thought you meant about other things that are supposed to be in there. No, he's talking about gross stuff. Okay, that's gross.
Oh, yeah, that's gross.
That's nasty.
That's the stuff we just don't want to know about.
No, nope. Nasty stuff.
Is that like that wine in a box shit? We're talking about rodents in there?
The black box.
The black box whiskey.
Oh my God. Yeah. Steve A, it's okay. Don't worry about it, dude. You don't have to pimp my channel that hard. We'll get there. We'll get there when we get there. But thank you. I appreciate it.
You only need 10?
I think we only need 10. Yeah, we're at like 1990.
Oh my God.
You gotta get there.
Yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there.
I'm gonna make 10 accounts just to get you there.
Everyone just hops on their alts.
Goes off screen. It's on the computer making them.
I do think I think there is another question I wanted to posit to you guys was so I was thinking about these two right here. So this is bourbon. This is the Buster Douglas, which was a kind I paid him for it, but he still sent it to me. So that's awesome. This is from Jason. So this is the Buster Douglas. This is 42-1 bourbon whiskey finished with American white oak. So it's finished with a supersonic weird thing where they ultrasonically shake the whiskey with white oak chips. This actually tastes more like bourbon to me than does this guy, the beer barrel bourbon from, who is this? Who are these guys? Oh, New Holland.
That stuff is bad.
Yeah.
Really bad.
This one, I really like this one. This is a single barrel we did.
Oh.
It doesn't taste anything like bourbon. It doesn't taste anything like bourbon, but it's good.
Sorry,
Hey,
I don't
Richie,
like it, Jay.
good to see you, buddy.
No, I don't like it at all.
Hey, Richie. But I guess to what extent, like based on taste, like what do we expect? Like, should you, if you're finishing your bourbon, are we expecting a certain taste profile to remain after the finishing? And should, whiskeys be held to that standard? And follow-up question, how the fuck would we do that?
Yeah. I mean, there's no. I don't see how you monitor that. I mean, we had our discussion with Nancy Fraley last night, and she was saying that when it comes to like cognac, port, sherry, they all need different types of finishing time to get that flavor you want. Now it's really up to the distiller to say, okay, this has gone too far. Or we want it to add layers to the bourbon, but we don't want it to overpower the bourbon. Those are the finishes I like. Now when it goes too far, like the Angel's Envy rye that's finished in casks.
Yeah.
That has gone. That's off the reservation. That's fucking. That's not
true.
even. That is maple syrup and marshmallows in a bottle. That's off the reservation. They've gone too far. I mean, what are you saying? You're gonna have like a government body come in and say it cannot be aged any longer than this.
It cannot. Yeah, I mean, you're right with the taste part of it, and taste is just so subjective. It's like, what you think is a traditional bourbon flavor.
Yeah.
Maybe all you drank all your life is just Jim Beam,
Sure.
white label, and that's what you think that's a bourbon to me. So I think I would rather have the distillers and the blenders have that ability to say, you know what, if I want to, I'm going to finish this I'm going to make it all on the label. I'm going to say it all, but I want to like explore this shit, like I want to try different flavors and have different expressions. So I think that's kind of what for me, that's what I'm seeing. I'm just seeing like, they're trying new stuff and they're saying,
Sure.
F it. They're going for it.
Yeah,
And
I think distillers are getting smarter with it. I think we're seeing more finishes that are just adding to the flavor profile. You can still get those bourbon notes, but you get the influences of whatever they're finishing it in. But there are still cases out there like the brown sugar bourbon where it's gone too far.
yeah.
And maybe their target is a different type of whiskey drinker. Maybe it is the college person or that hasn't really gotten into whiskey yet, that just wants something really sweet just to get into the category. You don't. That's the other thing. Then there's a marketing and promotion behind it. You don't know like what that target is. What they're going for. The new whiskey drinker. Obviously, they're not probably going to be going after the seasoned whiskey drinker with that stuff because it's probably just too damn sweet.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah,
I want to thank Mash. Oh, I'm sorry. I just want to thank him for the super chat. Before you go, Jay, I'm sorry. He put this in a while back. Thank you so much. Are you drinking enough water or wada?
Yeah, I got my water right here in my little New York cup, as always.
All right, Jay, please go ahead.
But yeah, I think that's part of the problem. Like Jason was saying with the brown sugar bourbon, if they're going after that, young or new bourbon drinker demographic, the college students or whatever, and that's what that demographic then thinks bourbon is, then they're in for like a big surprise when they drink real bourbon, right? So like I think that's the slippery slope, and where the TTB really does need to hammer down on crap like that.
Sure. Now I hate the term devil's advocate because I think it just allows people to say stupid shit without taking responsibility for it.
Yeah.
However, I'm going to play devil's advocate because I say stupid shit. What about, like, could there be a counter argument that we need to just let like categories of whiskey evolve whichever way they go? We just need to let, open up the rules and see where people take it, rather than sticking to these definitions.
Yeah.
Oh, God, I gotta put my thinking cap on for that one.
Also, robotic, the robot devil is advocated. He says I need to advocate for him.
I got a super chat from Hendo.
Oh yeah, thank you, Mr. Henderson. It was barrel proof. Yeah, I would probably drink a lot of that.
Well, we might. You never know.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it's. I think the category's already gone. Like one thing I expected this year or even last year was there to be a concise definition for American single malt, and that never happened. So I don't really think we're going to see any definition of categories anytime soon for whatever reason. I think we're going to keep seeing these crazy concoctions and finishes and blends all, keep going until someone says otherwise. But I believe, I think Will from Whiskey Crusader said it a little bit back, that I think finished bourbons need to have a kind of a specialty category eventually. Because like I said, of the money grab and what we're seeing now with so many people getting into whiskey and the evolution of, just whiskey in general and trying different finishes, trying different woods and grains and all that, I don't think we're going to see it anytime soon, unfortunately.
Oh, Steve Frosty is a newbie. That's awesome. Thank you for popping in. Jay or Neil, please. Same question to you guys.
First of all, I want to cheers JG for having a great name, but I think bourbon, like to your point, has evolved. If you go back to like 4 or 5 years ago, like if you go on like any type of bourbon forum or something like that, purists used to like kill Jeffersons for a lot of the different things they were doing. But now, if you look, a lot of the same things that they started out doing first, people are applauding, like Bardstown Bourbon Company or other newer non-distilling producers are putting out kind of similar things, and like they're all the rage right now. So I think we've seen that change in the last 4 or 5 years, big time.
Eric Everson is bringing up a point about big companies leaning on the little guys to try and stifle innovation. Certainly, no, that is certainly a concern, and we've seen it not only in America but in other whiskey producing nations. That is definitely true.
I mean, I agree with that, but you're seeing the big guys get into finishing. So, I mean,
that is true too.
What kind of noise are they going? I mean, we saw Wild Turkey. If there's an epitome of a bourbon of a distillery that is locked in tradition, I mean, you have Jimmy Russell, who's basically the Yoda of bourbon, his son Eddie, and then his son Bruce, all together sticking to that tradition. And what did we get 2 years ago? Eddie went and he bought himself some Oloroso sherry casks, and we got revival with Master's Keep. So we're seeing this across the board as a way to open up different flavor profiles to, I think, new and also curious, the bourbon curious, and just, like I said, whiskey geeks that want, when we see an old hat bourbon company come out with something new that's finished or toasted, even though in our mind, I mean, who gives a shit if it's still really a bourbon? We want to try it because it's new.
Yeah, for sure. And thank you, Cheech Gordamaglet. Thank you so much. He's saying he'd rather bourbon be strictly regulated, everything else being categorized separately. I have a thought on that, but first I'm going to let Neo get in on this conversation.
So I'm going to go off the devil's advocate here. So if you open everything up, open up the floodgates, right? Mm-hmm. I think the issue would be that where do you stop? I mean, I think you just lose like that keyword of integrity. I think it's just like, like if you unregulate everything, like with that, it's like, then what makes it special? Like that's why I think a lot of people have a lot of pride in bourbon. And they say, hey, it's America's, only native spirit. It's very like intertwined in the United States' history. And I think that, you start kind of doing that with bourbon and just starting to kind of just be like, whatever, we'll just put whatever on it. I think that, that's going to piss a lot of people off. Oh. And, I'm trying to figure out like if you would just let it completely go, if that would be any good. I don't know.
We just hit 2K. Apparently a bunch of people made alts.
Hey.
That deserves a poll of Malort. We'll do a little Malort poll. 2,000 subs. Thank you guys. That's awesome.
Celebrate good time, Eddie.
I will say I can understand it because you do. I think there's two. It's twofold there. When you lose specificity, you do lose a certain amount of pride in you making a specific style.
Yep,
you also lose a great marketing term. I mean, specific marketing terms do draw people in. You wouldn't want it to get diluted to the point where people aren't attached to a certain type of whiskey, because that makes you money.
Yep.
Donald Rance, Goramagut, thank you, my orange friend. We love you. He's saying if whiskey wasn't allowed to evolve, we wouldn't have many styles of whiskey that we take for granted now, like Irish pot still. That's true.
Correct.
I do think there is absolutely. It's a weird balance, though, isn't it? To balance the point of innovation and trying to make people able to innovate without running into this weird stuff where suddenly people are making ersatz whiskey out of, I don't know, old apples. Now you don't want people running in the completely opposite direction. I don't know. It's a hard balance.
Yeah, it is. And I think Eric brings up a great point. He said how much bourbon, finishing is lipstick on a pig. And that's true. And we see that in Scotch as well. You have a young whiskey that has some rough edges, and you're kind of hiding those rough edges with a finish on it.
Right. And Goramaga, Sawyer Fam, thank you.
Yep.
I like the sticker.
So we see that a lot. We see that a lot across the board. I mean, yeah.
Well, and that's why you had a lot of regulation at the beginning of the 1900s to stop rectifiers from making really shitty whiskey. Exactly. And after Prohibition to create categories to keep people from making really shitty whiskey.
Yeah, exactly. But I think to your point, Eddie, Jimmy, almost, I think you nailed it with the, finding a balance. I think as long as you keep the integrity of those strict rules of bourbon, the ABCs of bourbon, as they call them, American barrel, or, charred oak barrel, corn, distillation, all that stuff. As long as you keep the integrity of that intact, I think you still have that pride and that integrity that people that create bourbon still have. I think now with the innovation, we have to see now how far this is going to go. It's already, for some people, it's gone too far. But I think, again, finding that balance, allowing people to innovate and to bring in more people to the community of whiskey is the key without going too far to alienate the purists of bourbon drinkers.
Sure. I agree with you. I do think, I will say, I think we do need to take pains to welcome as many new people into whiskey as possible.
Yeah.
No doubt about that. I think nobody wants it to remain static. The last thing you want for an industry is for people to not want to join in on it.
Yeah.
The Mash Bill just threw in $10. He says, congrats. Well, thank you. Hey, Jason, can I get you on one of my lives? I just started. He has 60 subs, but your track record lately is great. First, Dusty, 1K. Now add on 2K. Dude, hey, we've got 67 people in here. Can we get him up to 100 right quick?
Yeah, can we get the Mash Bill to? That is for those of you that don't know him, that is Stanley Wagner, Wags as we call him.
Oh, that's Stanley Wagner? I didn't know.
Oh my goodness.
That's Wags. So
holy shit. Yeah, dude. Everyone.
I got him right now.
Go get out of my stream. Go subscribe right now.
Yeah,
everybody.
He's got his YouTube channel now, the Mash Bill. Go subscribe.
I'm doing it right now. I'm subscribing the shit out of it right now.
Everybody go do that.
Oh, yeah. I became 61.
Yes, thank you, Steve. Steve just put that up. Everybody go subscribe.
There it is. Thanks, Steve.
And I think, Nick Levin, when does it stop being whiskey? It is such a hard thing. I mean, to a certain extent, I do feel like we shouldn't fight innovation because otherwise you just end up being a dinosaur. You just end up being the old man yelling at a cloud, right?
Yep.
And the world passes you by. That said, like, we don't want it to get to the point where everything is spirit whiskey and they're making out of 95%, molasses like they do in India. Nothing against Indian whiskey, but there are certain whiskeys in India that are not in any way whiskey.
Yeah. Does it defeat? Is it kind of like can you say we want controlled innovation? Is there such a thing?
Right.
I like that. I think you should make it right now. Controlled innovation set in place right now.
We want you to innovate, but we don't want you to dump Malort in like bourbon and then bottle it and call it like something new.
Malort magic. Oh my God.
That's all we need.
Yeah. I do think there is to a certain extent, definitions are only important in so much as they guarantee quality and consistency.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? You know what you're getting and you know what it was made out of.
Mm-hmm.
The rest, you can innovate around that as long as the core concept remains the same.
Correct. Yeah. I don't think we're going to see anything change. I think we're going to continue to see, just like the Breckenridge one, we're going to add natural flavors. We're still going to sneak bourbon on the label. I think we're going to continue to see this until something goes completely off the reservation that people gives it a reason to flip out. I don't think that's happened yet. Maybe the Malort blended bourbon will do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, Steve A is saying we're up to 82. Motherfuckers, I know there's 65 people in this chat. Get the fuck over there. What are you waiting on? Come on.
He's
Go
up to 82
subscribe.
now.
Go subscribe right now. I don't know why you're waiting for. I've given you permission to get the fuck out of here. Go subscribe.
Just hit that little button.
He's 83. We have this nice string of people hitting 1,000 recently too. The Bourbon Ranch Hot Buttery Roll, Shelf Turds, all those guys. So we have
Hot Buttery Rolls is may I excuse the pun, but he's on a roll.
Yeah, Chris is great, and Chris really knows his stuff. He's got an amazing collection too, and he loves all the whiskey.
Yeah, and I gotta say, Shelf Turds. If you haven't checked out Shelf Turds, they're basically our channel, but way better.
Oh my God!
Yeah, Dave and Kira are pretty brilliant. They make me laugh, man. I love that channel.
No, they're fantastic. Okay, we only have a couple minutes left because I don't want to step on Bourbon Bites' toes. He's got an important guest on tonight, so all of you need to go watch Bourbon Bites after this stream.
Mm-hmm.
I don't actually know if Scotch for Dummies is on. They might be. Whoever you like, go watch the replay. If you don't watch whoever you don't watch, go watch the replay. However, I did want to talk to you guys about other categories of American whiskey.
Okay.
Because right now, malt, rye, wheat have the same rules as bourbon.
Yep.
New casks, 160, 125, the usual bullshit. And I have a personal opinion about this, but I'd love to hear from you guys. Are those rules as important to those styles of whiskey as they are to bourbon?
I think they are on paper, but not to a pure bourbon drinker. I think, and it's a shame because you have the bourbon rules are so strict. I think
Eric Waite loves making fun of my name. And sorry, go ahead.
Just jabbing it.
In America, top shelf. In America, if you want to call it malt whiskey, it does require new casks. However, you can call it single malt as long as you don't put it on the same line as whiskey. Single malt only counts as a term of art, so you don't have to use new casks.
Correct.
It's kind of bullshit.
Yeah, that's what my point was before. I want some more regulation around American single malt because people are making some great stuff. And we just haven't seen that yet. But yeah, I just don't think that rye and wheat and malt are nearly cared about. I mean, to me on paper, I think, you need that regulation. There needs to be some rules around it. But to the average bourbon drinker, or I'm sorry, not the average bourbon drinker, but a bourbon purist, they're not going to care as much about those categories, unfortunately. I mean, that's my thought of how I think people view it. But I still think it's important.
Will Henderson is saying Chattanooga could be interesting in the conversation. It's high malt bourbon. I actually really like high malt bourbon. Maybe because I'm coming from Irish and Scotch, but
absolutely. Chattanooga made me a fan.
Old Elk especially is one of my favorites. So
Old Elk too. Absolutely.
But yeah, Neil and Jay, please. Same question to you guys.
Go for it, Jay. Go for it, buddy.
Yeah, as long as we don't start seeing like you were saying earlier, neutral grain spirits being able to be blended in and be called these different categories of whiskey, then I'm totally fine with it. I would like to see different subcategories be created and kind of have their own set of rules. But yeah, I don't. As long as we're not, trying to pass Kesslers off as straight whiskey, I'm good.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I think I have to agree with everybody here with that. I mean, I just definitely want to see more not more regulation per se regulation, but just more definitions and just kind of making sure it's strategic and making sure that they have the blenders and the master distillers in mind when they're doing this, So I would like to see that because, I mean, it's like this. I got this out, this High West double rye store pick. It was like, it's just amazing. It's like rye deserves to have just as much thought to it as bourbon. Same with, any, malt or single malt. I just think they all can get, it doesn't matter. It's like, if you just have a good, drink, it's good. So I would love to see it have more attention. 100%.
Sure.
Like Whiskey Mission said, transparency to me is key.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's the trend. You're seeing, all these companies like Bardstown coming out and putting exactly what's in it on the labels. New Riff puts their mash bill right on the label. As long as that trend continues, like that's really the key to me is that full transparency, not trying to hide, bull crap in a bottle and sell it for something else,
Yeah, and Bardstown's using sherry, brandy, Armagnac, orange curacao. I mean, you name the liqueur, and they're finishing their shit in it. They don't.
Yeah.
But they tell you. Now I'm curious. Well, Eddie, Jimmy, almost what your thought of, because I know you're a rye guy. So how do you feel about it being a rye guy?
To my mind, Nick Levin, real quick. Bourbon Pursuit Series 36. Finish in Applejack. That actually sounds really good. Yeah. There's room for innovation without forgetting tradition. I think that's a good point.
That's
a good way to put it.
That's the balance. That's the balance right there. Exactly.
Yeah. I will say, to my mind, I feel much more strongly about keeping new oak for bourbon than I do for rye. Maybe it's because bourbon was an adopted love of mine rather than an original love. Like I came into it and now I want it to stay the same. That's my own problem. But like for rye, I really like, there's a lot of ryes I like that are either finished or done in like used bourbon barrels. For example, Limousine is both done in used barrels and is finished in French oak. This is awesome. Mm-hmm. And it's really, really good. And not only that, I feel like it brings anything that brings out more spicy, dilly, black licorice-y rye taste. Good for me. Mm-hmm. I got no problem with it. So, like, if using used bourbon barrels for rye makes it more spicy, do it. Like, do it up. The less wood interaction, the better. But I will, in the same vein, though, I will say, to a certain extent, I think that mindset is influenced by how other countries have made these whiskeys. Canada has been doing rye in used barrels for a long time. Mm-hmm. Ireland and Scotland have been doing used barrels for their malt and pot still forever. So it's like, how much of that is based on personal taste? Quite a bit of it, but also like there are historical precedents as well. Whereas with bourbon in the modern era, it's kind of become associated with new oak. Whether or not that was historically true, who knows? But new oak is kind of central to its identity.
Yeah, I think so too. But I just don't think as many people care about it in rye, wheat, and malt as they do in bourbon.
Oh no, and they shouldn't. Shouldn't, because I think new oak makes bourbon a lot better. Doesn't necessarily do the same for malt or rye or wheat necessarily. I
could see you being you like that spicy dilly and that kind of that sassafras licorice type forward rye. Mm-hmm. Actually, I just tried one of the ryes you were talking about recently. The what is it? The Polish rye from Cat's Eye.
Yeah. I've got a little sample of that right here. Yeah.
That's a black licorice bomb to me.
Oh,
because I'm very sensitive to it because I'm not a black licorice fan, but I actually like that rye. So,
Sure.
yeah, it's interesting how that works out. But yeah, I just don't think enough people care about those the cask maturation when it comes to those other categories, being rye, wheat, or even malt or any other. I think really the purity of bourbon and the people going crazy over it is that's kind of the focus. But yeah, I would love to see more innovation in rye. I mean, this company here, Rye 3, I mean, they did a rye. It's a blend, MGP, a 12-year-old light whiskey, and then they finish it all, and then Canadian rye, and then it's all blended in a rum cask. I mean, it's delicious. It's different. It's unique. And I'd like to see more of that, in the industry. Yep. Sure. Especially with rye.
Yeah. No, I think rye, I am fine if you open the floodgates on rye. No problem.
Open them up. Everyone do what you want.
Like as long as it kicks me in the teeth, I'm good.
We're gonna get a Malort rye now.
Yeah, listen, I wouldn't be opposed to that. You know what? I'm gonna try that. Jay, you have inspired me.
Should we do a Malort rye?
I'm gonna take my little mini barrel and I'm gonna fill it with Malort for like 3 months. I'm gonna dump it, and then I'm gonna dump it and put a rye whiskey in there. See what happens.
You got to name it something. I
don't know. I'm gonna name it the Eddie Jimmy Almost Special.
Yes.
Sign me up.
Sugar Kitty says, just for me, a cat blend tuna flavored rye. I would drink it. I would.
Oh my God. That's amazing.
All right. We are coming to the end of our time here. We have got to get off because Bourbon Bites, he's got a very important guest. Make sure to go check out his stream right after this one and subscribe to him if you haven't already. I want to thank all of you guys so much for coming on. And real quick, what do you guys have coming up? Anything you want to promote? We can start down here.
Go ahead, buddy.
Got it. So I think Jeff and I are going to be doing some just some kind of like discussion stuff and just kind of getting to different topics and just kind of battling out a little bit and just kind of having fun. We kind of been both really busy, so we got to get back on the horse here. Right now we're running beside the horse and we can't catch up, so we got to get back on that son of a bitch. So yeah, but check us out, Bourbon Buddies. On YouTube, you just search that, you got us, and see if you can take us for a little bit.
Jay, how about yourself?
I've been doing a series called Drink Ohio Bourbon. I'm Ohio, like Jason is, so I've been trying to highlight different Ohio distilleries. So I got more of that coming up. And on the baby side, I've created kind of this fake morning show that I do with my son Max. It's a lot of fun. So I got more episodes of that coming up as well. So you guys just put me up over 300 subs tonight, so I appreciate it. Thanks, everybody.
That's awesome.
Nice.
Yes. That is so great. Yes, everyone go subscribe to these two. This guy over here, where is he? There he is. He's got enough subs. You don't got to worry about him.
He's get more. He's got to get more.
And we'll finish out with one more super chat. Thank you so much, Maspio Gordamagut. He's saying thanks to everyone who subscribed. We're topping off at 89. Come on, guys. We still got 47 in the chat. We can get it over. Come on.
We'll get you there.
Yeah, we'll get you there. All right. But until next time, everybody, thank you so much. I'll finish off with a little Malort for you because I love you. And until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, but most importantly, stay rotten.
There it is.